conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else.
For me, if he gets into office, and I hope that he does, because the truth reality is we have between two candidates to choose from, and obviously Trump is the candidate that people should be voting for. But to the extent that he is going to use the office to further Israel interests above America, I'm not going to be happy with that. His base is not going to be happy with that.
I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies.
What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about a few different stories if you stay tuned and stay with me. First one is Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, has made a video telling the Biden administration that he's really upset that they're withholding weapons, and he's essentially blaming Biden for why they can't finish the war with Palestine or Hamas. We're going to look at that clip and then react to it, and then we're going to listen to a clip of Candace Owens on Breaking Points with Sagar talk about the donor money that Trump received, $100 million from pro-Israel Miriam Adelson, essentially as a, I'll give you this if you do this for Israel. And I thought Candace's response was interesting. Then at the end of the episode, I hope you guys stay tuned, I have a really interesting breakdown that you probably won't see anywhere else of this guy who I believe was the leader of the House Freedom Caucus. His name was Bob Good. He's about to almost lose an election. It's 50-50. They might have to do a recount. But the reason that he's not just winning completely is because Trump endorsed the backer against him, or the I would say the opponent of him in that election. And I just wanted to read this interesting breakdown because I see a lot of pages. I don't follow every race in the House and the Senate, but the pages that I do follow that are pro-Trump and Republican, they're constantly posting like every other week. They're like, oh, darn it, Trump endorsed this guy who sucks. Oh, man, he endorsed a rhino. He endorsed this rhino. And I wanted to kind of open up into maybe why that's happening, because I think I have an interesting idea and breakdown. So I'm going to share it with you guys. Appreciate you. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section to let me know the audio is good. Give me a thumbs up for the algorithm on the Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble video. Dream Rare Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on? Charlie said, I was just thinking about you, Anomaly. Well, that's nice of you. Someone else said, I'm tired of the Israel complaining. Well, don't worry. We're not going to be complaining today. But here's what I will say. Thank you for your opinion. We appreciate it here. Ukraine has gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from the United States of America. Israel has also, over the last couple of decades, gotten hundreds of billions of dollars. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call this a complaint at all, but more just an analysis of the situation. I'm not complaining. It's just real talk. That's what we're doing here. And Sue said, I can't believe I'm here for the beginning. Excited. Sorry, exclamation point. I see exclamation points and I'm just calling them exciting points now. I just changed the name. There you go. Anyway, let's watch the video of Bibi Netanyahu. I saw this on Twitter. And he essentially said, you know, Biden, thanks for the money and everything. We appreciate it, sort of, but you're withholding weapons and you're the reason that we can't finish off Hamas and really end this thing. So let's look at it. Let me know what you think in the comments before I tell you the full story and what I think. Maybe I'll read a few. We'll see.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster.
So that's what Bibi Netanyahu said. Give us the tools, give us the weapons, you know, stop withholding weapons from Israel, United States, give us what we want, and we'll do what we need to do. Here's what I'll say real quick. I just want to show you a few news articles of stuff you may or may not know. First one is the response from the White House. Apparently, the White House says they don't know what Netanyahu is talking about, suggesting that they're not withholding weapons, I guess, or just being pretty vague about it. So they responded by saying, like, we don't know what he's talking about. Netanyahu apparently is going to address the United States Congress on the 24th of July. So he's going to fly to Washington, D.C., and probably do his Zelensky impression in Congress. And this is just reminding people that we just a couple months ago gave them $26 billion in aid when we can't even get a couple $1 billion for our border and nobody seems to care about America. We gave them $26 billion just a few months ago, money that could have been used for a lot of things that wasn't. I'll just say this. I see the striking similarities. I know they're different wars, different people, different ideologies to some extent, I guess. I see that as like a very Zelensky move where it's like, give us more, you give us more, and then we'll finish the job. People that are sympathetic to Ukraine would say, no, Ukraine is different than Israel because we got to fight Putin. People sympathetic to Israel will say, well, no, it's different. They're our greatest ally, or they're the only democracy in the Middle East, or the Bible tells me that Armageddon only comes when we defend them, or a multitude of other things. And I know personally, I'm not going to read the comments just quite yet, but I've spoken to people in person and I have a wide array of friends and people I talk to. I know some people that, they really don't like the fact that Biden is not doing more for Israel. They want him to do more for Israel. And that's like their main talking point is like, we need to get Biden out of there so Trump could get in and give Israel everything they want. The other counter perspective, people like Candace Owens that I'm going to play a clip of, to be honest, people like myself that I can't say I share everything. Like me and Candace are different people, so I'm not going to, I say what I think and she says what she thinks, but I'm more of the thought process of like, Ukraine has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to defend itself, but why is it that America is the world's piggy bank? Why is it that we give them $24 billion and then they turn around and basically scoff at our president and say, you're the reason that we can't really finish this thing. Like, give us what we want. And here's where things get a little interesting. I follow somebody on Twitter. It's a lovely woman. I'm not going to say the name because it doesn't matter. And I don't feel like causing any sort of drama, but it's simply just for, conversations about thoughts. She tweeted something and was like, why, she's very pro-Israel, this girl that I follow. And she said, why would Israel want to flood, or like, why would Israel want to flood the West with migrants? It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they want Muslims to take over the West? Like, how does that benefit Israel? Like, that's ridiculous that you even think that that's happening. Here's the thing. I'm not going to say everybody wants to do that because it's not true, or every politician, but there was an op-ed written in the Wall Street Journal, which is a right-leaning publication in America, by a member of Netanyahu's party, where they said that Europe and America should take in the refugees from the Palestine war. They said, why don't you take in the refugees? You always do when we fight wars in the Middle East. You always take them in. Why do you not want these ones? So I'm just being honest. This girl's like, well, why would that's a crazy theory? And it's like, it's literally not a theory. It's literal reality. So I guess I would say this as an American citizen. We just gave that country more money than we've given to our own border, which is wide open, while members of his party are writing op-eds in American newspapers telling us to take in their refugees. So this is my issue. I'm all for alliances. I'm all for having friends in the Middle East, and I think it's awesome. And I think a lot of Israelis are great people. And there's no hate at all. But it's like, it feels like we're getting the short end of the stick. And in all these situations, whether it's Ukraine or Israel, it seems like the leader just come around and basically blame us for we don't even get the money for ourselves. And we give you more money than we get for our own security in some senses. I mean, I know we have a military and such, but our border's wide open. You don't do very much he could come to America and in his speech, he could say, listen, America, you're crazy. Like if he was really our ally, he would go in front of Congress and say, America, you need to close your border. What the hell are you guys doing? I would never allow this in Israel. We couldn't allow this in Israel. We wouldn't be able to survive if we did this in Israel, and you will not be surviving for much longer if your border is this wide open. Is he going to do that? I don't know. Probably not. He'll probably just ask for money like Zelensky and basically shame everybody who doesn't want to do it, like the Biden administration, who's already super pro-Israel and giving them money. So I get there's going to be people who disagree with me and say, we have to give them money. We have to give them the weapons. We have to give them that. We have to give them this. But it's like, when is the relationship going to be mutual, in the sense of like, if we're going to give a country $26 billion and soon to be 46 and 86, and if you go for the last 50 years, they've gotten hundreds of billions of dollars. And then the conservative members in that country are going to write op-eds in our newspapers saying that we should take in the refugees that they just told us were Hamas terrorists, that they just told us were bad people, and they want us to take it. What does that say? That it's just like America is just like the world's like, I'm not going to say the word, but you know the word, where it's like, it's just like, give us your money. And the second you stop giving us your money, we're going to get pissed off and we're going to blame you and we're going to call you bad people and we're going to say you're pro-Russia, or we're going to say you're anti-Semitic, and we're going to say you're helping the other side. And it seems like American citizens are never really considered. So before I play the next clips, that's just what I want people to consider. And I think there's parts of this interview that I didn't include that I thought were interesting. And I'll just kind of summarize it real quick. But they were mentioning how Trump said that Israel has to like finish the job quickly because like people are not liking what they're doing, as if they're like losing the PR battle, which I think is true. And I think even people that might disagree with me, they have to consider this eventually. Like, calling people hateful all the time for just like saying what I just said, it's not working anymore. So I think even if you do want the money and you do want the weapons and you do think America should just like forever just dole money out to that country no matter what and never ask for anything in return or whatever, if you feel that way, you have to understand why other people feel the other way, because I've been in this game for 4, 5, 6 years now, and I see how I'm feeling right now. It went from like a fringe thought like 6 years ago that was very unpopular to something that I would say is getting even more popular than the other side of it. So, why are you losing the PR battle? It's because that part is missing. And that's all I want to say. I'm not trying to convince you. If you want the weapons or you want this, that's for you to decide. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong if you think that or whatever. But you can't keep ignoring the thing that I just said and acting like that's not why a lot of people feel that way, because it is. Speaking of which, I'll get some people's opinions at the end. I'm sorry, guys. I'm in the flow, so I don't want to stop it now. But let's listen to Sagar, who's been on the show recently, a couple weeks or a month or two ago. The time flies. I don't remember how long ago, but Sagar from Breaking Points had Candace on, and he asked her a good question, really great journalistic question, about the $100 million super PAC donation that Trump got in exchange for something for Israel. And I thought Candace Owens' response was pretty interesting. That's why I included it. So let's listen to the question, then we'll hear her answer.
So I guess I want to follow a little bit on this. I've seen, for example, reporting Miriam Adelson gave some $100 million to the Trump campaign,
Wow.
largely, I believe, in exchange for, not the Trump campaign, to a super PAC, in exchange for allowing Israeli governance over the West Bank. We've seen Trump adopt, frankly, some more pro-Israel rhetoric than President Biden. Just again, on the sticking of the America First kind of theme, how are you going to evaluate that in your support for Trump going forward?
Great question, Sagar. Good journalism. This is a question that a lot of pro-Trump people are not often asked when they're a little bit like skeptical of all the Israel support. And Sagar asked a really poignant question. We're going to listen to the answer in a second, but I just wanted to say this. The hidden hand of politics that a lot of people are starting to realize that maybe some people don't, or they think it's hateful, or they think it's a conspiracy theory, is donor money. Right? There's a lot of different type of donor money, but a lot of the big donors are pro-Israel. It's just true. So 5 months ago, 6 months ago, if I say, Trump just got $100 million donation from this family in order to do something for Israel, the press might run with it and say, oh, that's anti-Semitism. He's saying that these people are paying Trump off to do this. And it's like, it's not anti-Semitism unless you're saying anti-Semitism is the truth. Then I guess it is that. But I don't know what the word means anymore. Like if it means the truth, then yeah, sure, it's that. But if it means like you're being hateful and you're wrong, then no, that's like literally what's happening. So now, these type of questions, which used to be considered anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, are now turning into mainstream podcast journalism, because it's not a theory, it's not a guess. It's like these people will come out, give hundreds of millions of dollars to politicians and say, this is what we want in return. it is what it is, regardless of what you think about it. Like, that's just what it is. Whether you're pro-Israel, skeptical of Israel, you were born in Palestine, you were born in Israel, you live in Israel, that's the truth. So it's just interesting to see people, what used to be called hateful is becoming mainstream journalism now, because that's why Trump's getting the money. And if Trump didn't do enough for Israel, he would not be getting that money. So it forces politicians to basically work for Israel, or else the $100 million goes somewhere else, AKA all of these liberal college donors that are now dumping their money into Donald Trump because the colleges went too pro-Palestine. But here's Candace's answer. Let's listen.
For me, if he gets into office, and I hope that he does, because the truth reality is we have between two candidates to choose from, and obviously Trump is the candidate that people should be voting for. But to the extent that he is going to use the office to further Israel interests above America, I'm not going to be happy with that. His base is not going to be happy with that. And his feet should be held to the fire over that, and not even just Israel, just Ukraine interests. It doesn't matter.
So Candace answers, she says, I think Trump is the best person and people should vote for him. However, if he's going to go in there and put Israel interests above American interests, then, people should hold his feet to the fire. And there's a lot of people that feel this way. Before I respond to this completely, I'm going to play the last clip. Let's look.
It doesn't matter. Any foreign country right now, America is not in a good enough situation to be helping any foreign countries right now with anything. That is the reality. And so I would hope that he is not taking money from any individual with some implicit promise that he's going to do things for other countries. That's not the way it should work. I don't even think lobbying should be legal.
Yeah, well, don't disagree certainly on that one. Sticking again on the Ukraine theme, what is your confidence?
So Candace said in that part, she said, I would hope that he's not taking money from individuals to do that. But he is doing that. And I would say this as well. I've seen other people too, where it's not just in, I would say, pro-Trump, like, like people that go to Trump rallies and like support Israel or whatever. It's not just those people that have a blind spot for Trump. I feel like over the last 4 years, even the people that are quote unquote further right, that, they are critical of Israel and they get called all sorts of names, even they, for a long time, have been kind of cosplaying behind Trump and being like, well, this is who I wish Trump was. And, he's so much more America first than, Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis is an Israel puppet. Like, I watched so many people say this for years, and I kept thinking to myself, it's like all the things that DeSantis does, Trump also does. In some cases, Trump does more. In other cases, he does less. But it's this weird game that everyone's been playing where, for me, I'm like, why are you like, I understand that everybody like wants Trump to do something, or they wish he was someone, like everybody's like, this is who I think he is. And it's like, maybe, absolutely. Politics is difficult. It's not easy to navigate through everything. But I think what we're seeing now in a lot of this stuff is, I've even had people message me and they say, they're like, this person's starting to sound like you. This person's starting to sound like you. This person really sounds just like you. And it's like, I'm not taking credit because I listen to other people as well. And we all kind of build off of each other. And this is not trying to put somebody down or act like I'm so special. But the truth is, I've been saying the truth about this. So people that maybe weren't saying it 2 years ago that are saying it now, they figured it out, or now it's just become so obvious that they can no longer just pretend like he's not doing some of the things that he literally is doing. So I wanted to play this because I think this is a connection that most people will not make or see. And I think it's, what makes my show somewhat unique and interesting. Like, sometimes I do basic stuff and react to like Chuck Schumer flipping burgers because it's hilarious and I think it's funny and I like to be funny. But other times, I know that the reason that I got successful was not because I'm hilarious, even though I do think I am. It's because I did, good reporting and connected certain dots that most people weren't doing or doing as effectively. So with this one, this is something that I noticed. There's a guy named Bob Good, who I believe is the head of the Freedom Caucus. He's one of the better people in Congress. Nobody's perfect, but he's one of the best ones. Trump is endorsing a guy against him. Why would Trump endorse somebody against a guy who's good? Trump does this all the time. And this is where who you want Trump to be and who Trump really is. I think people at a certain point are going to have a super rude awakening. And I'll be here when everybody wakes up to this. But in general, look at certain people that Trump has either endorsed or turned against. Like he endorsed Mitt Romney in 2018. That was weird. Everybody knew Mitt Romney sucked, but apparently he didn't know, right? Whatever. Okay. You can go through all the bad endorsements, but sometimes you just got to go for the Republican over the Democrat. I get it. But then Thomas Massie, he tried to kick Thomas Massie out of the party. Thomas Massie is quite literally the only politician that I actually trust. I like Thomas Massie. I trust him. I think he's a good guy. He told the truth about the pandemic. He told the truth about the COVID vaccine. He told the truth about the lockdown. He told the truth about the socialism. He said that printing trillions of dollars was like cheese in a trap and it's a huge mistake. And because he tried to hold up the printing bill that destroyed the economy, Donald Trump said, "You're a third-rate Republican. Kick Thomas Massie out of the party." People want Trump to be this guy who's like a leader, who's America first, who really cares about the country. But the truth is, outside of what the left lies about Trump, like I do like Trump in many ways, it's all about him. Like you think he's doing things sometimes because you think he's doing it for the right reasons. But in reality, sometimes it's so simple. Who will kiss my ass? Then I'll endorse him. Who won't kiss my ass? I don't care if they're the best congressman in the world. Throw him out of the party, get him out of my way, and replace him with a bootlegger. Anybody that tries to kick Thomas Massie out of the party multiple times sucks. They're not America first. They're not freedom first. He's the only good member of Congress, but that's how Trump saw it. I'm trying to print trillions of dollars with my friends Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, and this scumbag's going to stand in the way and ruin my big moment of printing the trillions of dollars for the American people. Let's get him out of my way. He's done this time and time and time again. So I wanted to play this little presentation, and it's really going to be eye-opening to why I think Trump's doing it. Just like I think Trump does certain things for donor money. I think, Candace for a long time, and I like Candace a lot, and, I would love to chat with her again soon. I'm sure we will. She likes Trump. She's met Trump. Like I think she's a loyal person. She wants to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. So with certain things, like when we talked a couple months ago or a year ago, I mentioned that Trump took $1 million from Pfizer and hired pharmaceutical lobbyists. And it's like a lot of people, they don't want to believe, just like she's like, I hope Trump's not taking money from individual donors who are going to move him on that. He is, though, and I understand you have to play some sort of game in politics, but I think a lot of people, they want to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. Like he's not a sellout. He's America first. But if you really study a lot of Trump's moves, in some ways, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really like Trump because he's like funny and charming and personable. And then other times I'm like, is Trump the best controlled opposition of all time? Is he the biggest sellout who everybody perceives as not a sellout? Because you could point to so many different things where Trump took money and then he did whatever the donors want, including his whole cabinet. But I want to talk about this one because he's replacing Bob Good, a man who voted against foreign aid for American interests, who said, let's not throw our money at Israel and Ukraine. Let's chill out and focus on us. And Trump's trying to replace him with a guy who's running on the premise of, no, we need to give money to those countries, and this guy's not giving enough. So he's basically replacing somebody that seems more America first with a rhino. And I don't think it's like a coincidence. I think there's two things at play. One, if anybody, I think this guy endorsed DeSantis. So if you endorse DeSantis, Trump pretty much hates you. It doesn't matter how good you are, which is to me a sign of like a bad leader. It's like if Thomas Massie endorsed the other person, a humble, thoughtful person would be like, yo, I don't like the fact that you did that. However, I still know you're better than the other guy. But Trump, it's like, get rid of him. Part of it's loyalty, but also when Trump takes hundreds of millions of dollars from donors who want to basically put another country first, then you start weeding out the politicians who are not America first. And I'm not saying for sure this is a donor move, but you already know that the mega donors and the big donors and groups like AIPAC and others, they basically don't want anybody in Congress that goes against the voting bills because they want the weapons, they want the money. So if there's a politician that says, you know what, for American interests first, I'm not going to give $50 billion to this country now, what are the chances that Trump is basically just fake opposition, weeding all of those people out of our party until it's a skeleton with, nobody that's actually putting America first? And I'm not saying everyone's going to get out, but let me show you what I actually mean. Let's look. So real quick before I play this, Michael Tracy is a left-leaning journalist. I would say he's kind of similar to Glenn Greenwald in the sense of he does great reporting, even though I don't always agree with him. And he noticed this, that Bob Good is really close to losing. And, he might lose. We'll see what happens if there's a recount. just listen to what he said, because he really broke it down, I thought, like very intelligently, to the point where I wanted to include it in my live stream. So I hope you enjoy. I read this and thought, wow, this is worth sharing. So here's the election. Bob Good was the head of the Freedom Caucus. He's one of the best Republicans in Congress. And the reason John McGuire is probably going to beat him is because Trump endorsed him. All right, so he wrote this. Michael Tracy said, assuming the results hold and Trump successfully ousts Bob Good, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, for no apparent reason other than Good's failure to show sufficient fealty to Trump, it will be a major insight into how Trump deploys his enormous political capital, and also the extraordinary leverage of Trump in the GOP, which has no obvious historical parallel. Ousting incumbents in primaries is exceedingly rare. It almost never happens. Due to the powers of incumbency, Bob Good had no realistic risk of losing his GOP primary, other than if Trump got involved, which he did, despite Good trying to make amends for endorsing DeSantis by traveling up to New York City courthouse for solidarity appearances at the porn star payoff trial. It's not just some liberal exaggeration or illusion that Trump controls the GOP. His ability to oust an incumbent Republican congressman and leading House conservative with nothing more than a few true social posts is a display of unparalleled political domination that it's legitimately difficult to identify and apt any historical precedent for. Customarily, presidents and former presidents tend to stay out of party primaries because they want to function more as a broad church coalition manager. Not Trump. He imposes the criteria of obedient personal loyalty to him and him alone. Nothing to do with policy, principles, or any other factor, just loving Trump. Bob Good voted against the National Security Supplemental Bill in April that Trump orchestrated, including the Israel funding portion. His Trump-endorsed opponent, John McGuire, trumpeted himself as a much more reliably pro-Israel person than Good, who he claimed had backstabbed Israel, just like he allegedly backstabbed Trump. So when Trump does stuff like backing Ukraine funding, demanding that Israel pulverize Gaza harder, secure the continued rule of Speaker Mike Johnson, sign off on warrantless FISA surveillance, etc., realize that Trump is doing this from a place of unprecedented influence in the Republican Party. He just shown that he could single-handedly oust incumbents in primaries. That strikes fear into the heart of every member. And how is Trump using this unprecedented influence? Again, by demanding, I don't even know what the word that is, personal devotion, and then pushing through every establishment policy measure that his supporters love to erroneously claim he opposes. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think that was just so eloquently said. And this is what I noticed. It's like in people's heads, and this goes to like normie right, pro-Israel right, critical of Israel right, people that like, you know, have different ideologies, but they're America first. Like everybody kind of gives Trump this magical pass where it's like Trump is the guy who's the most pro-America person we've ever seen. And this is the conclusion that I've came to a couple years ago. And it was unfortunate because, you know, I lost a lot of people along the way. Trump's mouth is so pro-America, right? His mouth is what he says, his speeches, his policies are not always that way. And with this guy, Bob Good, it's like he's going to tell people he's America first. Then he's going to oust one of the best members of Congress, either for not being loyal to him versus DeSantis or because of the Israel stuff. But he'll never tell you that's why he's doing it. He just does it. And then it's like, you know, the same way with the big funding bill. Lindsey Graham, who's the biggest neocon rhino of them all, he told us that they would never give a single dollar to Israel until we got our border wall. Even Lindsey Graham got to that point. He said, this is so ridiculous. We'll give you money, Ukraine and Israel, because of course Lindsey Graham wants to give you money. He probably wants to give you a lot of things. But anyway, but we need a border. And that's what Republicans are supposed to do when they have leverage. Like, let's get ours and then we can give you theirs, which not everyone's going to agree with, but at least we got ours. And then everybody caved. And then people found out later that one of the reasons that a lot of people caved is because Donald Trump went around whipping up votes, making people cave. So with Donald Trump's mouth, he's like, oh, I'm not for Ukraine funding and I want to end the war. But he's running around behind the scenes, making sure all the Republicans do what he says. And the second that you don't do what he says, then he calls you unloyal. He's like the ultimate psyop, in my opinion, because so many people, even the smartest people in conservative media and the most ethical people in conservative media will go, I like Donald Trump, so I don't think he sold out to Big Pharma because I want to believe that Donald Trump would never sell out to Big Pharma. I think he got tricked or he made a mistake or whatever. But the results and the receipts show that Donald Trump did sell out to Big Pharma. people don't want to believe that Trump would take $100 million to essentially put a foreign country above America. But he does do that. He did do that. And there's receipts from his first administration that I've gone through 100 times. Him and the Republican Party got $400 million plus from this family. People talk about the influence that George Soros has on the left, rightfully so, because George Soros spends hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on political and social causes around the world. So it's not an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and it's not hate. I mean, sometimes people get it wrong and they say George Soros did something he didn't do. But the reason people are always mentioning the name George Soros is because he's a billionaire philanthropist, quote unquote, who uses his money to change, things around the world. And that's just what he does. It's not hateful. It's just the truth. People don't even know about the Adelson family because it's like the same way the left doesn't know that what they're doing is being funded by someone else because they don't want to admit it. Because if you ever admit that, then it doesn't feel like activism. If you're in the streets burning something down and you're like, wait, there's a guy who agrees with us. And I'm not saying George Soros is necessarily doing that. I'm just saying, like, do they know that DA was funded by a group that he donated to, et cetera? No, because then it would ruin their whole, like, I'm fighting the bad guys and the establishment and the billionaires. It's like, one of the biggest billionaires that, is involved in politics is on your side. Oh, no, it's the same with the right. Like, they'll be like, Trump, he could never be bought out because he's so rich. That's what he said. But if you follow his trajectory, after he said that, after he won, he got bombarded with over $100 million of donations from all the mega corporations. And if you look at his cabinet, he hired Rex Tillerson, who was an oil guy, for Secretary of State. Then he replaced him with Mike Pompeo, who's a former CIA director. Wait, Donald Trump, who's draining the swamp from the intelligence communities, put in a former CIA director after an Exxon guy. He hired a pharmaceutical lobbyist executive to run HHS. He hired a big pharma guy for FDA that everybody knew was connected to Pfizer and the pharmacy industry. And then he hires an FBI director named Christopher Wray. And when he's pressed on why he did it, and everybody's like, oh, he just got tricked or whatever, he says because Chris Christie told him to, and he listens to Chris Christie's advice. Meanwhile, you guys are all calling Chris Christie fat and being like, ha, Trump called him fat. Because Trump's a jester. He's a court jester. He's like an actor, a comedian. You know what I'm saying? Like, ha, look, he's fat. People are like, yeah, he's a rhino. If he's a rhino, then why is Trump hiring quote unquote deep state positions? Because a rhino told him to. Because that's who Trump is. And really, it's a difficult pill to swallow because nobody's going to believe you when you say it. So when I started figuring this stuff out in 2020 and showing the receipts, people gave them like, oh, no, I don't want to. Like, no one will tell you. Very few people. RFK will mention it. Other people will. But nobody will tell you Trump sold out to Big Pharma. He didn't get tricked. He didn't save the world from a 5-year lockdown. He didn't do what Alex Jones told you he did, which is give you the vaccine that's like basically sugar water, as Alex Jones said. All these people are pathologically lying to you. Either they know they're lying and they're pieces of garbage, or giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I like to do. They're so enthralled by Donald Trump that they don't want to admit it. I saw people like Nicholas Fuentes. Now he's talking about a lot of this stuff, but he's a, huge, I would say, enemy of Ben Shapiro and Turning Point USA because he knows about the Israel influence and he said some bad boy words like 7 years ago and they're mad at him or whatever. Or he's hanging out with Kanye when all that stuff went down. But in general, it's like now he's kind of coming out and saying a lot of this stuff. A couple of years ago, I saw, like, I understand he was always saying similar stuff. However, it was always like, but Trump is so different, but we love Trump. And because it's like everybody, no matter where you are on the conservative or Republican spectrum, whether you're Candace Owens, whether you're Nick, whether you're, a boomer who loves Israel, whether you're, this person or that person or black or white, everybody, like, in the right, for the most part, wants to believe that Trump is who they want him to be. And nobody wants to really admit. It's hard to admit. And it's like you want to give someone the benefit of the doubt because politics isn't easy. But when you come to the conclusion, it's like, the whole premise that we liked him is he's putting America first and he's not a sellout. And it's actually not true. Like, it's not true on any level. And then even with all these people he's endorsing, I follow pages that would probably sniff his farts and say it smelled like a sunflower on a summer day, right? This is how pro-Trump they are. Every week they're posting stuff and they're like, oh, gosh darn it, he endorsed a rhino. Oh, gosh darn it, he endorsed a rhino. Oh, no, he's trying to kick the best member of the House out. Oh, no, he's trying to kick the Freedom Caucus member out for a guy who's, saying that we should fund foreign countries when half your party doesn't want to fund the foreign countries. It's like, how long are people on the right, and I know that it's changing, how long are they going to pretend like Trump is just this idiot. Like he's simultaneously the smartest and best politician we've ever had, and he has the brain of a 3-year-old where he's constantly getting tricked by Mitt Romney, Chris Christie, and he just doesn't know. And Fauci tricked him, and Scarf Lady tricked him, and Trump's just this doofus idiot who doesn't know what he's doing. Like it's all just fanfare, and it's all fake. And I'm starting to notice the patterns. It's like Trump's just a sellout. He takes money from Big Pharma. He sells the country to Big Pharma. He takes money from pro-Israel donors, and he does whatever Israel wants. He takes 400 million plus, him and the Republican Party, from a pro-Israel family, and then he bails a foreign spy out of jail and sends him back to that country on his donor's jet. That's who Trump is. He's not fighting all these people. He's literally like working for them. He's just the perfect fake opposition. So it's like, when everybody wakes up from this madness, they're going to realize that the House sucks and the Senate still sucks. Well, why does it suck? It's not because the swamp is so deep that nobody can penetrate it. It's because Trump is working with them. Trump is essentially, in many ways, he's working within the swamp to kick out the good members of the Republican Party, replace them with worse members who are less loyal to America, who are more beholden by the donors, while he's telling you that he's doing the opposite. And there's certain people that are good that Trump likes, but it doesn't even seem like he knows why he likes them. It's just on a simple basis of they kiss his ass. You know, Matt Gaetz kisses his ass. Marjorie Taylor Greene kisses his ass. Lindsey Graham kisses his ass. So they all get a spot on the table. It doesn't matter that they're ideologically opposed. And I guarantee you that Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene know if they ever stopped kissing his ass, he'd probably run somebody shitty against them and replace them. What kind of leader does that? But that's who he is. I think Michael Tracy nailed it. And I think that, you know, patience is a virtue for a reason, because no matter what the cause is, whether it's this or any other sort of policy or whatever, you can only do so much. You can't sit there and go, I wish everybody agreed with me. Well, yeah, that's not the world. Not everyone's going to agree with you. It's never going to be perfect. But here's what I have found out over the last couple of years is focus on yourself and have self-accountability, because if you do great work, I believe you'll eventually get rewarded for it. If you speak the truth, it will stand the test of time. You know, I made a video in 2019 about the anti-Semitism speech laws. You watch it now, it's still the best video that anyone's ever made on the speech laws, and I made it 6 years ago. Charlie Kirk's videos on it this year can't compete with the video I made 6 years ago, because they're still just half-assing the truth, telling you basically half of what you need to hear 6 years later, because they have to, because everybody found out about it. So it's like now I get messages, oh, this person sounds like you. Oh, this person's coming around. Oh, this person's doing that. I'm not competing, and I'm not, you know, I learn from other people as well. And sometimes other people inspire me. So it's not a competition, but at the end of the day, I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth. So there's a lot of people who don't want to tell you that when they know it, or maybe they just don't want to know it. And I'll chalk it up to a few things, and then I'll try to read some comments. One, some people, they don't want to admit it. They want to believe that this is the guy who's going to fix all their problems, and this is the guy who's the most pro-America. And I want to say this too. In 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, even parts of 2020, let's just say all of 2020, Donald Trump was the best Republican. I'm not an idiot. I'm not Joe Walsh. I'm not Anna Navarro. I'm not a turncoat. I identify that Trump was the best conservative leader. Nobody was even close. I liked Rand Paul, but nowhere near as much as I liked Donald Trump in 2018. Like, Trump really was that dude, or he seemed like that dude. Once the pandemic happened, the narrative changed, the tricks changed. You started listening to all these conservatives in 2021 and 2022. I told my audience, and I stand by it, Trump went from the number one conservative who like made the most sense and was clearly the best leader. It's like if you got Tom Brady and some bum, you don't put the bum at quarterback. Tom Brady's the quarterback. You know, if you're, no matter what position you play, you're the coach. Let's just be honest. Trump was the shit. Trump was number one. Trump was the quarterback. He deserved to be. I have no problem with it. I'm not jealous. I'm not trying to oust him. He was that dude. You listen to his rhetoric in 2021 and 2022 about everything that was going on. I would tell people, listen, he's not even a top 100 voice right now. Like, is he popular? Yeah, he's still the most popular. But as far as he's not making sense anymore, like, listen to Candace Owens talk about COVID stuff. She makes more sense. All these Trump bootlickers that, you know, have Instagram pages, they even make more sense than Trump. Like, Trump went from the person who made the most sense to somebody that's just an idiot. Like, oh, my vaccine saved 100 million lives. There would have been no mandates if I was president because everybody would have wanted to get my shots and we had it rocking. And I'm like, dude, this guy went from like the realest, most honest politician to I don't even consider him a top 150 honest voice I want to listen to. And I identified that because it was the truth then and it's the truth now. But everybody played stupid. Everybody acted like it wasn't true and they just wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and he wasn't selling out and he just got tricked. And that was never the truth. So you're going to see a lot of people in the next couple of years. I hope Donald Trump wins the election. I hope he gets in office. I hope he does well. And if he doesn't, I hope everybody starts to sound like me in 2 years because it's just what it really was. So I think, on one hand, the nicest thing I could say is that a lot of people ignored it because they wanted to not believe it, because it's scary to believe that that's the truth. So they let it kind of kick the can. It's the same way like maybe there were people in the 1990s talking about border security and you thought it was stupid. You're like, who cares about the border? But then 2016, you're like, MAGA, I obviously care about the border. It's wide open. Or maybe you didn't care about the border in 2016 to 2020, like a lot of people did. But then, now Elon Musk is talking about the border because the border's even further open. It's like the shittier things get and the more obvious the problems get, the more people come on your side. If you're early on anything, it's not always going to be popular to some extent. So on one hand, let's just say that's what I see with the Trump thing. People didn't want to say it because they wanted to play along, but the further it drags out, the more obvious it is that they can't play along. I think that's the most innocent reason that people have done it. The not so innocent reason that people have done it, and I'm not going to say everybody, but definitely some people, is there's so much money to be lost and so much opportunity to be lost if you're a Republican. Like Michael Tracy said, it's the truth, not from like a left-wing Democrat perspective, because MSNBC lies about a lot of stuff. But the truth is like Trump is the star, right? Trump's the star. He runs the show. If you turn against Trump in any way, even if you're telling the truth about like him selling out, you're ousted, not Trump. Like nobody cares what he does. Like if anyone else did that, they'd throw him out. If Candace Owens was like hawking vaccines, like they'd be like, yo, Candace sucks. But she didn't do that. But what I'm saying is like if Trump's the only one who could get away with all the stuff he does because he's like the star of the show. Okay. Everybody knows that though. So like when people are like, oh, that person 4 years later, they sound like you, or oh, that person's finally coming around to it, or oh, Charlie Kirk talked about the speech laws, or oh, Ben Shapiro mentioned it. You might think that they're doing it because they just figured it out now. And it's like, oh, anomaly, you shouldn't shame people for being ahead of the curve. It happens. Sure, of course. It's not a race. However, you think that they just figured this out. I know that a lot of these people, the reason they don't tell you the truth 4 or 5 years ahead of time is because there's a lot of money for them to lose. For example, Turning Point USA is donor backed. If Charlie Kirk ever came out and had the same stance as Candace Owens when it comes to Israel, Turning Point's not going to make as much money from donors. A lot of the biggest donors in Turning Point USA are pro-Israel. So even though they still work with Candace Owens, they put up a tpusa.com/Israel page where the whole thing said, hey, we're not Candace. We're not Candace. Charlie's not Candace. On Israel, Charlie doesn't think what Candace does. Sure, but Candace is all over your front page. So you use her to make sales for your tickets because you like Candace Owens, but you got to make a page that says you disagree with her. And I understand it's okay to disagree with her, but that's for the donors. That's Charlie saying, I don't think that way. Does Charlie not think that way because he doesn't think that way? No, I believe Charlie Kirk agrees with Candace Owens on all of that stuff, but they made a Charlie's not Candace page because Charlie is a donor sucker and Charlie is the head of a donor sucking organization. So Charlie can't suck up donor money with that stance. He probably believes it, but he can't say it because then he's going to lose God knows how much money in donor money. So you think he's just telling you something 5 years later because he just figured it out. I'm telling you, there's lots of money to be lost for telling you. There's lots of opportunities that you can't get booked for if you tell. So, I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of these people are not just mysteriously going to figure out what I told you 5 years ago in 2 years. That's not the truth. Their business, they're going to have a fork in the road. It's like the Daily Wire sort of thing. I always knew who Daily Wire was. I always knew where their loyalties lied. I always know what they were doing. I didn't need someone to tell me, and I didn't need a whole breakdown between Candace. I already knew all that stuff that everyone found out about Candace. I knew that just from being in media and realizing it. But when that happens, it gets to a point where like now Candace is saying so much stuff. Now they have a decision to make. Do we keep Candace Owens and let her essentially take over our brand? And now instead of our brand being Israel, 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 our brand is like America, 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 and let's put Israel in the same category as Ukraine and be skeptical of them too. Or you part ways with Candace Owens and make a scene, and then everyone figures it out anyway. So like they were damned if they did, damned if they didn't. But they parted ways with Candace Owens because their brand is that, and she was getting to America first, and not having her as much loyalty to another country as they do. But it's like that's the moment that they had. They didn't want to have that moment. It wasn't like they're like, yeah, let's have this moment where everybody realizes who we are, or everybody gets mad at us, or everybody like we look like hypocrites. No, they got forced into that moment. So now they're doing this. Now they're saying this. Now Matt Walsh is coming out making a video about it. It was basically forced by people paying attention and a massive star kind of breaking the matrix in that sense. It's the same thing as all these people. So this is my only advice to people that care about politics and want to make a change. If you're just going to be a fan of Donald Trump or a fan of Charlie Kirk, you're going to be waiting forever on certain categories. They'll give you some stuff, but they're not playing the game that I'm playing. And, I had a conversation with somebody who's big in media and they got upset with me. I'm not going to get into the details because it's not important. And, I'm a man, I'm a real one. So I don't cave or, I'm not going to like pretend to be someone I'm not. But they said something to me and they said, we're playing a different game. We're playing a different. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that everyone's playing a different game, and in some ways that's normal. Like a company owner that has 500 employees is playing a different game than a small business. That's true. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, it's like I know who everyone's playing a different game, and I know the game that everyone's playing. You don't have to tell me what game you're playing. I already know. You could tell me, but it's like like you think they're doing this, but they're really not doing this. So it's like Trump, Charlie, all these people. As soon as people figure stuff out, that's when the opinions start to change. Because when it comes to Trump stuff or when it comes to how they present the information, like, how much money are you going to lose? If you have a shift in foreign policy, how many tens of millions of dollars in donor money are you going to lose? If you have a shift in foreign policy and you get more America first, are you going to lose your gig at a multi-million-dollar media corporation? Probably, because 99% of conservative media at this point, all major conservative media, is like Israel, Israel, Israel. So it's like you can exist in that. Not only can you not exist, they probably don't want you to work there, and they'll probably start working against you. So it's like, the same way that Michael Tracy was saying with Trump, every Republican knows, like Thomas Massey's the only one that has a spine. He's just like, listen, this is how I think. I like Trump and sometimes I don't. And like, look how successful Thomas Massey's been. That just proves like being your own person. You can go against it. But most people, they're like, I don't, if you go against this certain country, or at least you're perceived as going against a certain country, it's not even going against them. It's like standing up for your own country. Now there's millions of donor dollars from the super PAC going against you. Well, that's a little stressful. Now the media starts calling you names and saying you hate people. Well, that's a little stressful. God forbid you piss off Donald Trump and he tries to run some rhino against you. So it's like everyone's playing this game of like, I don't want to say this because what am I going to lose if I tell you this? Like, I know that there's congressmen that know what I know. It's just like, is it worth it? It's not worth it. It's not worth the stress and the financial loss and perhaps losing my seat. So I'll just go along with this topic, but it's not, they're not doing it for the reasons that people think they are. And I just wanted to be clear about that, because I know there's some people that over the next 2 years, they're going to figure all this stuff out, because it's going to get so crazy that it's just obvious. Just like you've seen the shift in the last year, where what used to be considered like, oh, we don't want to talk about this at Turning Point, is becoming mainstream on X and other social platforms. But not everybody just has an awakening. A lot of people, they don't want to lose donor money, social circles, Trump favor for that reason. But if you think that, and then I'll read some comments and try to keep this under an hour. If you think that you worship Trump, you support Trump, and he supports the America First guys, and he fights against the rhinos, that's not how it works at all. Trump takes donor money. Trump gets paid off by a lot of people. Trump pretends like he's not doing it. Trump starts weeding all the people out of the Republican Party that either aren't loyal to him or aren't loyal to the foreign country that Trump essentially works for at this point, that thinks he says they should own Congress and whatever. And then no one realizes it. It's like he's the perfect maestro of this game that isn't the game that people think they're playing. And I want to end on this note just to be super clear. My stance on Israel, Ukraine, Russia, Palestine is this. And I don't have to do this, and I'm not pandering. I'm just telling you the truth. Some people are different than me. There's people I see on Twitter saying other stuff that's not what I'm about to say, and maybe that's true to them. So it is what it is. But this is who I am. I don't hate any country, and I'm not saying this to pander. It's just the truth. I personally have met amazing people of all kinds, and that's the type of stuff. I've lived a great life. I've traveled, not as much as a lot of people, but in general, it's like I know that there's good souls from every country. I know there's great people in Palestine and there's great people in Israel. So when people try to come to me and say, oh, well, you got to think all Palestinians are evil, it's like, that's evil to think. I know that's not true. There's good people there. And then there's good people on the other side. And no propaganda in a war is going to make me think that there's no good people on either side. That's not the truth. Just because of a government or a terrorist organization or whatever, it's not how it works. Okay. And even if a majority of a country is failing or whatever, there's still great people there. So I'm never going to be someone who hates people. And it's annoying, but at this point, I don't care anymore because I know that it's just lies, and lies don't affect me as much as they used to. But it's like being perceived as hating all people when you say something true about donor money or politics or foreign aid is just annoying, and nobody's believing it anymore. So that's how I feel. With that being said, my stance on these countries, I'll have an opinion if I study a war, and I'll be like, which side of the war do I think is more right? Everybody has an opinion, but I live in America. I have no problem with Ukraine or Israel doing what's best for them, but our politicians are not doing what's best for us. They're not. They're just not. They don't serve us. The Democrat Party doesn't serve us. The Republican Party doesn't serve us. Why? For many reasons, but donor money is a lot of it. They're getting paid off. It's the same reason that, people work for other companies and they just do whatever the company says because they get six figures and they're just a cog in the machine playing along to some corrupt game. That's what's going on in this country. And anytime you vocalize that, they just assume that you're this or that or the other, and it's just simply not true. And more Americans are going to start to feel that way because this foreign policy of Zionism or neoconism or whatever you want to call it, where we're doing all this stuff for another agenda, it only works when America's good. When America's good, people think it's for American interests. When America is thriving, then people are okay. They'll ignore it. Once America starts to fall apart, the illusion that all of this stuff is great for America doesn't exist, because if it's so great for America, why is America falling apart? And if America is falling apart, no offense, Israel, and no offense, Ukraine, but we need to focus on ourselves right now. If my house is falling apart, if there's a bulldozer knocking down, that my house, I can't be giving houses to other people because I don't even have one. So it's like, that's the dynamic that's going on here. Zelensky in Ukraine doesn't give a shit. He just wants as much money as he could possibly get from America. Why wouldn't he? He already got $100 billion. He's not wrong for his country or for himself. I don't think he's helping his people, but maybe he's doing what's best for him or perceived as best for him. I'm not mad at him trying to suck as much money out of America as possible. Why wouldn't you? We're the easiest country to rob. So he's just trying to do that. Our job is to be like, listen, bro, we got to focus on ourselves. And it's the same thing with Israel. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars, but it's never enough. They got people in their conservative cabinet member writing op-eds telling us to take the refugees that they're saying are terrorists. If they're terrorists, why are your party members telling us to take the refugees? Because they don't care about us. They care about themselves. Sure, that's fine. But why can't we care about ourselves? And more people are starting to feel that way. So this spin of saying it's pro-Putin or pro-Hamas or anti-Semitic or pro-Russia or this or that, or you're this and you hate and you hate and you hate, it's really just I would say a victim narrative to just keep getting money. Because it's like the second you're like, no, it's like, oh, you just hate me. Oh, yeah, we must hate Ukraine if we don't just keep giving them money. Like, that's what you're saying because you hate the thought of not getting America's money. But we have an open border. Our cities are failing. People are getting robbed all the time in their houses. Their cars getting robbed. America's turning ghetto. The whole country is turning into a shithole. I still like America. I appreciate it. There's still a lot of great places. It's still better than a lot of other countries, but it's declining quickly. We don't have the luxury to do all this other stuff. And part of the reason that it's declining quickly is because we have a media that doesn't give a shit about us. When the media in America doesn't care about America, America's not going to be very good. When the politicians in America don't put America first, America's not going to be good. When the Democrats literally are doing the opposite of what's the best for everybody all the time in the most psychotic, demonic fashion, and then the Republicans are fake opposition who are really just serving a foreign country first and passing speech laws to prevent you from saying it, of course our country is going to fall apart. So the easy thing is for the left to say it's the right, and for the easy thing is for the right to say it's the left. But the hard thing is the truth, which is it's both sides. And it's not both sides but Trump. It's both sides and Trump. Trump is in on it. And people are going to figure this out. So I'm not concerned with people who don't understand, because a lot of the people who didn't understand 4 years ago, they're saying it now. And a lot of the people who aren't saying it now, they're going to be saying it in 1 or 2 years, because they only can get away with it when it's not obvious. When it becomes so obvious, then everyone's going to be saying it. And we'll see what happens at that point. But that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll read a few and then I'm going to take off. I want to say this real quick too. Appreciate y'all. While I'm looking for comments, thank you guys. We had a lot of white hat sales yesterday at dreamrare.com. We have white hats, and there's also stone colored hats, which are slightly like tinted white. They're actually, when I did a conference one time, people liked the stone ones even better than the white ones. I like them both, but dreamrare.com, check it out. And the code is SUMMER, SUMMER, 20% off. Thank you guys. The sales have been great this week. I appreciate it. I'm trying to sell the whole shop out, and we're getting pretty close. So thank you guys for the support. If you've ever wanted any of the merchandise, check it out now. Appreciate you. It's all made in the US. Jim said, the silence is what concerns me the most. We are surrounded, and most of Americans have no idea. They would call it a conspiracy theory if we ever mentioned it. I hear you. Optimistically with the super chat, he said, regardless of who you voted for, he said Israel didn't vote, so both sides should be upset when Netanyahu's ungrateful towards Biden or Trump. Well, I'm confused exactly at what you said, but I'll say this. I don't like Joe Biden. Joe Biden sucks. He's an embarrassment. He's annoying. But even though he's all of these things, it still is a little bit annoying when you have a foreign leader basically shaming him like, you need to do more for me. I mean, if this person really cared about us, like we care, think about this. We care about Israel's border. We care about their weapons defense. We care about their wall. And that's what they tell us. We give them billions of dollars every year, billions. Israel gets more money than any country ever. And it's like, you know, you're anti-Semitic if you don't want it, but whatever. We have to care about their security, their border, their weapons. Why isn't he talking about ours? Why don't you tell Biden, we're ashamed that you won't give us weapons, and I'm ashamed that your border's wide open? That's what a real friend would do. You know, when Trump talks about Israel, he talks about their border. When Biden talks about Israel, why doesn't any Israeli politicians, why aren't they freaking out about our border? Because they care about themselves and not us. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're even conservative members. Imagine if a conservative member of the Republican Party wrote an op-ed in an Israeli paper saying, hey, what do you think about taking all the Palestinian refugees? They would freak out. They would call it anti-Semitic. They would say they need tens of billions of dollars and more donor money for all of the, pain of that article or whatever. And it's like, that's what they did in our media. In American media, you have conservative Israeli politicians writing op-eds saying you should take hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees. Hundreds of thousands. America and Europe should take them. Why are they trying to flood America with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of refugees that they've called terrorists? Why? Because they don't give a shit about us. And the second that Americans figure that out, you start sounding like Candace Owens. And the second you start sounding like Candace Owens, you see what the real matrix is, and you see who the real rhinos are, because there's like layers to the rhinos. It's like, yeah, Lindsey Graham is an obvious rhino. Mitt Romney's an obvious rhino, but it's like a 5-layer dulce de leche cake, where it's like, also Trump is kind of a rhino, like nobody will talk about that. But in general, it's like, there's like all these games being played, and it's just not fair. Like, I'm fine with you defending your border. I'd even be fine with giving you tens of billions of dollars of weapons, but you can't call me hateful if I have an opinion about it, or like to stop doing it. So it's like, none of our allies care about our border. And in fact, you'll find more of our allies not only not caring about our border, but you'll find more of our allies being like, just take more people. Just take more people. You take it. Give us money, you take it. Give us money, you take it. You take our people, you take the people, you take the refugees. Here, we need more money. Oh, you're not giving us money? Oh, we need a new president who will give us the money. It's like, how could you not see this at this point? And there's still people who don't see it, which is crazy to me. But I'm going to end this video. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I'm trying to keep this under an hour for marketing reasons. Promo code SUMMER, SUMMER, 20% off all of the merch. It's selling out quickly. We sold like 7 or 8 white hats yesterday, so I appreciate you guys. Dreamrare.com. Check it out.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check